Facebook is up. YouTube is starting in a minute.
All right, great. Well, Duke, just let me know when.
YouTube is up. They're all up. It's on.
Oh, awesome. All right, well, good. And it is 9:01. So I guess we are live. We're going. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in for this year's annual meeting. It's obviously a little unconventional. It's a little different than in years past. So I'm so glad that you're here joining us. We're, all of the speakers today are obviously in various locations. I'm in my office at the church, which I recognize now as not the most aesthetically pleasing backdrop, as Matthew is in the process of painting the walls in here. So it's got tape everywhere and whatever, but in a way, it's a little bit of a metaphor for 2021. It's starting fresh, and we're going to be doing some new and exciting things this year. So I'm excited to talk about 2020 and then to look ahead to this next year. Now, again, this format is a little bit different, obviously, than the way that we would normally do this. And so I want to begin by sort of letting y'all know how this is going to go. So initially, we thought about doing one giant Zoom meeting, but we got some feedback from some folks who mentioned that they, don't really do Zoom. That was, that might be kind of prohibitive for those folks, and we didn't want to exclude people. And we know that by now we've all learned how to tune in for our worship services on Facebook and YouTube. And so we thought, well, let's use Zoom as kind of a virtual podium for everybody who's speaking, but then allow all of you to watch this live via YouTube or Facebook. Now, the downside to that is that it's a little harder for y'all to make questions or to ask questions or make comments. And we know that that's a big part of what annual meeting is. So I just want y'all to know that if you do have questions, please still ask them. But to do that, if you're watching on YouTube, there should be a kind of a chat bar on the side of your screen. You can type your questions in there. If you're on Facebook, you can type them as a comment, and we're going to come around at the end and try to get to some of those. We want you to know that if you've got questions, especially about the budget, and we feel that maybe it's going to be hard to answer those questions adequately in this particular format, we still want to address those. And so David, Todd, and I are more than happy to schedule a follow-up actual Zoom meeting that you can join and talk with us about the budget in particular, if that's something you have questions about. Again, we want you to be able to talk to us and to ask the questions and get the answers you need. And we don't want the format to be too restrictive, but we understand there are some limitations. So anyway, so we appreciate your patience with that, but we want you to know that we want to talk to you. We want you to be able to ask the questions you have and get the answers that you need. So let's see, how this will go. I'll kind of MC the morning. So we'll begin in prayer here shortly, and then I'm going to hand it off first to Mother Kelly for children's ministry report, and we're going to go through our ministry reports. We're going to have a finance report from David. We've got junior warden's report, senior warden's report, and then my report at the end. And then we'll kind of look at those questions, like I said, and end in prayer again. So before we get started, though, before I pray, I do just want to say a huge thank you to all of you who are tuning in. Whether you're watching this live at 9 or you're watching it later in the day, I appreciate you doing this because annual meeting is really important. It's important in any year, but it's especially important, I think, this year, which is such a year of 2020 being such a year of challenge and transition, and then 2021 being another year of transition where we look at life on the other side of the pandemic and what our ministries are going to look like and all of that. So it's, I think, especially important that we gather in this way this year. I also want to let you know that the annual report is available for download as a PDF. I believe that was sent out in an email this past Wednesday. So if you would like to look at that or refer to that, you can. And if for some reason you didn't get that in your inbox, please let us know this week, and we'd be happy to send you that PDF of the annual report as well if you didn't get a chance to look at that. So I want to say again, thank you to all of you. Thank you to Duke for helping us live stream this. Thank you to all of our ministry leaders and our staff for being flexible and hopping on and being with us this morning. We're so grateful for all of you. So, yeah, I mean, this has been an interesting year, right? And though the pandemic has certainly been full of, and still is full of challenge and a lot of sorrow and heartache, I mean, this has been a really tough year for a lot of people. And especially in the last couple of months, I mean, there were more COVID cases in December and January than at any other time in the pandemic. And so I know this has become very real for so many of us in ways that we would never have wanted. But we've been living with this for so long now that I think in some ways we've kind of adjusted to the reality. And by that, I don't mean that we like it or that, you know, we want to live with it by any means, but we have gotten kind of used to it in a sense. And I think it's been easy for me, at least, to lose sight of how unprecedented all of this is, how truly few examples of this we have to pull from in the past. I mean, I don't really think actually St. Richard's has ever faced anything in its history quite like this year. And so as you hear these reports today and as you read through the annual report, I hope that you'll think about that. I mean, that this is really the story of our parish's resilience in the face of adversity. It's a story of how we've come together to pull off a lot of really incredible ministry in a time of deep uncertainty, when planning's been hard, when everything's been hard, right? And so I hope that you'll hear that today and see that reflected in the annual report, that this is really a remarkable year. This is something remarkable and tells a remarkable story in our parish's life. So with that, let's get started and let's begin in prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, I thank you so very much for this chance to gather together, to be together today, to celebrate all of the amazing things that go on in this parish, to celebrate our ministry together, the ministry that we all share, whether it's ministry leaders, staff, vestry, finance committee members, and certainly every single parishioner who contributes so much to the life of this place. I am so grateful that you have called me here to serve alongside these amazing people. And I thank you so much for what you will show us in this year ahead. I pray that we will have open eyes to see where you are leading us, and open ears to hear where you are calling us, and open hearts to see those places in our community where we are needed most. For it's in your name that we pray. Amen. All right, so to kick us off, like I said, we're going to do our ministry reports, and first up is Mother Kelly. So with that, I'm going to mute myself, and then Kelly, if you unmute, it should feature you. Okay. So here we go.
Am I heard? Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Well, I wanted to begin by giving you an update on Scott McNulty, our choir director. I talked to him this morning on the phone, and he is currently at St. David's Hospital North with COVID and a bout of pneumonia. This is as of 2 nights ago. He had been sleeping way more than he thought normal last week. And he went in, and sure enough, as if things couldn't get worse for our dear Scott. So the blessing was to find him answering his phone this morning. He may, thanks be to God, he may be moving to a regular hospital room as early as this afternoon. He's not really sure, but they have him on the Resmedin meds, and I know prayers already by those who have known what's been going on are helping, and I'm hoping that we can continue to spread the word and ask for prayers. He is in room 386. If anybody would like to drop something off for him at the hospital, you can do that. But of course, I think that's the best we can do for him. And stay in touch by text and phone. As he's able to answer and respond, he will. So he appreciates all the prayers and feels them. I have just been grateful for any connection, personal connection. I think we all can testify to that we have with each other. Staff meetings this year have been way more important than they were before, because they are now just the personal connection, even if it's by video still, that I can count on each week. And I've been grateful for the seasonal connections that I have with families. I'm looking forward to, like with the cookie deliveries and the Advent boxes last December, I'm looking forward to doing some deliveries and meeting folks in the driveway at the church for pickup here in a week from today, for a Lent gift bag that will have some things for families to use and meditate with, and read scripture lessons on Sundays in Lent. So I think that's my theme of my report this year is gratitude for any personal connection by phone and video I have with our families. I'm grateful to Shauna allowing me to come in and carefully lead chapel once a month for small groups of kids in the chapel, and that's been a real gift to me. And then I've got a lot of hope for this summer. Even we're putting together planning tentatively, carefully for VBS in June, and we'll see where that goes. So I'm hoping to pull together our little teams as we plan for VBS in June. And I think I'll just leave it at that, Father Cameron.
Well, thanks so much, Kelly. And yes, we will certainly be praying for Scott. And I appreciate you giving us that pastoral update, as he's such a dear and valued member to our team. I will also say about children's ministry this past year, I've been really impressed with the fun and kind of creative ways that you engaged our families and children around Christmas. Especially the virtual pageant was really lovely and wonderful. And I just want to commend you for working so hard to put that together. And and then the Advent boxes and things like that. So I've appreciated those ways that you've maintained that connection and continued to make touches with families. So I'm excited to see how that continues in this next year.
Thank you.
All right, so next up on our ministry report list is youth ministry. So Spencer, take it away.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Kelly. Thanks, guys. It's been a blessing to navigate these challenges over the last couple of years, and then this year, it's been inspirational to me to see God shining through each of you, and even in times whenever you're not sure kind of how to address a particular challenge, but the team that we put together, St. Richard's, always finds a way, and normally it's more creative than we ever anticipated, and it's something different than that we've done before. But I think that it's been a blessing for me, and I'm thankful for that. Our youth have been, gosh, it's hard to summarize all of a year in just a couple of minutes, and it's pretty much impossible. But what's been really neat to see, and frankly inspirational for me, is to see our students to continue to re-engage in all these different ways. I think that we've actually learned a lot from our students, and they have adapted very well to the changing nature of 2020. And we've done a variety of different types of activities over the last year, in person and virtual. Last spring, our trajectory was into some really neat different activities, and we started incorporating different activities into the year. I won't go over all of them during the annual report. Please go check it out. It's definitely something worth looking through, even though it might take a little bit of time to read through. But we did a large event with First United Methodist Church Round Rock called Discipleship Now, where we actually slept here at St. Richard's for a weekend and camped out here and served in the community with Love Serve Feed. We worshiped and we played games and we heard great speakers from around the area with other churches and other denominations, and kind of expanding our horizons a little bit and opening ourselves up to where God is working in our peer churches and our friends with other churches. And that was really important, and that is really important for us to be a part of this Round Rock community here at St. Richard's and also beyond the walls of our property. So it's been exciting to kind of engage in some activities with our youth specifically over the last year, and we're continuing to do that, so much so that we actually have a retreat coming up at the end of March called One Day, kind of stemming from the successes that we had last year with Discipleship Now. And instead of doing a weekend with COVID circumstances, we're actually going to do a 1 day outreach, and it's going to be a lot of fun with a lot of other churches, like I said, at the end of March. So, we've seen in challenges, we've grown. We've grown through the challenges. We've grown throughout the summer. We had a variety of different kind of fun activities for the students and to re-engage into so that St. Richard's could be a resource for everybody and our families as well. And like Kelly said, I think the biggest thing that connects all these different activities is that that communication. We are an aim to be a resource for our students and for our families as we navigate challenges together. We're all going through these kinds of things together, and so that continues. And so we will continue to do that in 2021. We were excited this past fall to welcome our new rector, this guy right here, and it's very, very cool. And it was such a blessing. And our students are just kind of just touching the tip of the iceberg with meeting Father Cameron. And so we are super excited, and we were thankful to be a part of some of the fall services, the church services. Our students were actually reading the first Sunday of every month, which was really neat. We were doing that last fall, and also we were blessed to be a part of the welcoming service for Father Cameron, and that was important to us. Looking forward, I think that's important to start looking forward. And this coming week, we're actually doing a Valentine's Day cookie decorating class with another person on this call, Miss Robin Mueller. She's graciously volunteered her time to come and to be our guest teacher, instructor for a fun class for our church, but also for other Episcopal youth around the area. And this kind of connects to that same, broader discussion of connecting into the community. And so that's exciting. And our youth are going to be a part of that. And it's going to be this coming Wednesday on Zoom. And she's volunteered to teach a decorating class using her years of experience. So that's really exciting to kind of be a part of the Austin area EYC and some of the activities that we'll do together and learn together and have fun together. Maybe that'll translate into in person as things move on. Ideally, we can start gathering in person. In fact, we're hoping to gather in person towards the end of the month, and so that you look for the emails about that. But we are, that's coming up. We're also doing a Shrove Tuesday pancake cooking together with all the students. Instead of doing a big church-wide event, our youth are going to gather together on Zoom, and we will cook pancakes together. I've got nifty little boxes that I'm delivering. And we're going to deliver this next week or two leading up to that. So that'll be a fun kind of creative, different kind of way to engage everybody. And so we're excited about that. We are aiming to do an in-person gathering at the end of February and February 21st. And then confirmations coming up as well for youth and for adults. And actually, there's still time to join us. So if you have not been confirmed, or if you are would like to be reaffirmed, or if you'd like more about our church, we are going to be teaching a class, Father Cameron and I, over the next 3 weeks on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8:30 after dinner time, and that'll be on Zoom. And we'd love for you to join us. We've got a great group of people signed up, and it'll be a confirmation class. The bishop will join us the last Sunday of this month, February 28th. So stay tuned for more information about that. But we've got a lot of stuff coming up. Summer camps have just announced that they're open for registration over the last few days. Camp Allen, Camp Capers over the Diocese of West Texas. Look for that information in our emails as well as our website. But summer camps are open. The church is open. We're still rocking, and we're still looking forward to to seeing you soon. So thank you so much for everything. I'm excited and definitely here as things here for everybody, and excited to see y'all.
Thanks, Spencer. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been fun seeing just all of the different ways and the creative ways that you've kept the youth engaged. And honestly, I mean, we've got so many amazing youth in our parish, and they've been proactive about reaching out to you, and not afraid to share prayer requests and ways that we can support and be there for them. And I just think that's wonderful. Student ministry is a real passion of mine. I believe it's really, really important. It's crucial to a healthy church. And so we're really blessed to have someone like Spencer here at St. Richard's, who's helping lead that ministry to our youth and their families, as he said. So thanks for sharing those things. All right, so next up is Shauna with an update about her neck of the woods here at the parish.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to say a special thanks really to everyone, because of course, our biggest question this whole sort of time was how to reopen safely, and your encouraging words and treats that you've dropped by and all those good things have really helped us and the staff comfortable with our decision to go forward with our school year this year. And it's been great. We've welcomed 22 kids back in September, and now we're up to 38. So during this time, we are super happy about that. A couple of our highlights this year have been accreditation. I think y'all have heard about accreditation for almost a decade. It's finally, we had our on-site visit, I feel, in the nick of time before this pandemic. It happened February of 2020. And we are approved for that, which is super exciting. And of course, with that comes some conditions and recommendations by SAES, which include aligning the curriculum, rebuilding the school board, and kind of working on our board training and financial stability for the school, which just with the interactions this year and in the past, I think those goals and things will be met without any problems, really. The support we feel from the parish is just always so great. And if you have any ideas or you'd like to be involved in the school board, I encourage you to reach out to the vestry and Father Cameron, because we really need our parish to run that. I mean, we want to make sure we're always focused on the goals of the parish. Also, we were super excited this year to receive the Pumpkin Patch Scholarship for a family. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but we do offer scholarships. And typically they've been from a parishioner bringing a family to us who could really use it and couldn't otherwise attend our school. So we love that. We love that the Pumpkin Patch is going to help us facilitate those families. And we also want you to be thinking about if there's anyone in your life that would benefit from being at our school, but maybe can't afford it, please come yourself, whoever, please call the school. We will figure it out. Our main goal is to make sure we are providing the best possible early education for these kiddos. We're doing great. I mean, really, the school's doing great. The teachers are doing great. I know you all have been worried about us, and we thank that. And yeah, we're just chugging along. We're looking forward to our summer program. And really, there hasn't been a whole lot of change for us, just some extra precautions that we were kind of already doing anyway. So things are good in preschool. If you ever have any questions, please call, email, and get in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shauna. Yeah, the day school has been a real light for me this past fall. Every time I'm in the office, it's just the day school, but you hear the laughter and the kids, and they're always so excited. And I know there was some anxiety about, well, will they wear little face shields and stuff like that? But man, they like blinged them out. They put, they bedazzled these things. They were excited. And anyway, the kids are just such a blessing. So Shauna, thank you for the work that you do. And just to mention too, about the accreditation piece for all of y'all, that is also a priority for the vestry this year, for us to help work through some of those things and support the day school in the ways that we need to do that. So if you do think you might want to serve on the board and you know, have something to give, we need all types and all kinds on there, please do reach out. That is one of our priorities for this year, to make sure the day school gets the support they need. So Shauna, you mentioned the pumpkin patch and the scholarships there. So it just so happens the next person on our agenda is our very own pumpkin meister, Warren Gillespie, to tell us a little bit about the pumpkin patch this year.
Good morning, St. Richard's family. As you know, our 23rd annual pumpkin patch ventured forth to sow the seeds of missional outreach despite the pandemic. And I think because of the pandemic, and our efforts, we were richly rewarded, both in terms of financially being able to support more in our outreach, but also in terms of being able to connect, witness, and invite a greater number of visitors than ever before, as so many other pumpkin patches in the area simply did not open. We wound up being the #2 grossing pumpkin patch in the whole Pumpkin USA network of 1,200 patches. Our gross sales this year were $135,344 and change. Our total gross sales were $148,372 and change for pumpkins, crafts, sales of Round Rock honey, and securing donations. Our donations more than doubled last year and amounted to $10,433. So you could see that financially we were greatly rewarded. This ultimately boiled down to being able to gift $60,000 in missional outreach after our expenses, after our own outreach set aside for the patch and the festival of this year, and providing a $1,000 donation to our church sponsor, Boy Scout Troop 154, for their outstanding volunteerism these last 3 years. So essentially that $60,000 amounted to doubling our contributions to our 7 recipients this year over last year. By example, the Round Rock Area Service Center received a check for $18,000 this year versus a $9,000 check the year before. So we were richly blessed financially. We were also richly blessed in that we were so busy the whole month. I've never seen such an incredible outpouring of visitors the first 2 weeks of the month like we did this past year. We served greater numbers, and 40% of them were first-time people in our pumpkin patch because others had shut down. To handle all of that, we had a great cadre of volunteers dedicated in all aspects of the patch operations, from setup, tear down, unloads, and our welcome and sales shifts. Where we could always do better is in the welcome and in sales shift area. We left 22% of those slots unfilled this past year. And where that really hinders our outreach is in the welcoming, connecting, inviting of all these people. It turns out that, you know, I'm overjoyed at our financials, obviously, but the thing that brings me the most personal joy is serving in that welcoming aspect of our pumpkin patch. And one case in point, I met so many first-time people to the patch. I remember one family, the Freeman family, a young family of either 4 or 5, I forget how many kiddos they had, brand new to Round Rock, searching for a church family to join. Well, let me tell you about St. Richard's. And I had the opportunity one slow afternoon to tell them about our new rector, his wife, our church staff, our programs, and our warm, welcoming, and inviting congregation. Last week, Father Cameron let me know that we had 4 new families join the church over this pandemic season. And sure enough, the Freemans were one of them. So that was really heartwarming for me personally to be able to have an effect that way. But we can always do better in making connections, and that's, I hate to use the evangelism word, okay, but that's what welcoming, inviting, and connecting is all about. And even this Cradle Episcopalian has accepted that late in life. All to say that we did a great job, and I want to thank all those that participated in any capacity this past year especially. I would like to announce that we have a new pumpkin maestress in the person of Robin Mueller. I will be aiding and abetting her and probably hindering her somewhat as I continue to help her with that, and will basically be the business manager in coordinating with Pumpkins USA. We've already turned in our 2021 shipment dates and requests, and so we're well on our way to transitioning between the two of us. So again, thank you all those that that really participated in this missional outreach. We were all truly blessed to be able to provide so many with so much in such a needy time. Thank you.
Well, Warren, thank you so much. Thank you for all of your hard work and putting the patch together. It's a huge undertaking in any year, but especially in a year where we had to do things a little bit differently. And so I'm just so grateful for your leadership this fall. A lot of folks had told me in the run up, of course, it was in the parish profile about how big a thing the patch was, but nothing could have prepared me for what it was actually like. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully this year being able to add the festival back again and getting that. This really is just a tremendous community outreach in more ways than one. I think we can, it's fair to want to share the good news, not just of Jesus, but also of our community with others. And this is a really excellent way to just have a presence in our community and do something that's fun for families, but also goes to a great cause. So Warren, I'm really appreciative of all of your leadership there in this year, and Robin for yours in kind of helping take this on in your next step. So anyway, all right, so now we come to that thus concludes ministry reports. So I appreciate all of you for that. Now we're going to change gears a little bit, although Warren, you were talking a lot about numbers, and so maybe you were just getting us primed for the financial report from David next up. So with that, David, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Cameron. And Cameron, if you would just confirm that you do see like the little thing, the screen that I just shared. Good deal. Thank you. Well, thanks for introducing me. And wow, what a year. I think one of the biggest things that we faced was, when this thing first appeared back in February 2020, is we expected it all to be temporary. And here we still are dealing with it and, still trying to adjust. And, that's kind of how the beginning of the year went for us, is that we were just, we thought that we just had to kind of manage this temporary, though very severe environment. And then as, time went on, we started realizing that we're going to have to make some adjustments. And I really just wanted to say thank you to Liza and Spencer, Mother Kelly, and Robin Mueller and the vestry and the finance committee, because everybody really worked hard to try and work together to take the limited resources that we did have and do the amazing things that everybody's talked about today. It's actually, that's the best part about being on finance, is you get to see what all the amazing things in the ways that people are trying to carry Jesus out into the world, and, you know, working with youth or families or whatnot. And that's actually the blessing of this job, that it's not just about the numbers, but getting to see the story behind everything and what everybody does. I think that, you know, kind of starting in, you know, the third quarter of the year, we realized that, you know, this is not going away, and that we had a lot of fatigue around it, but we also had to just start thinking that, you know, we have to get more creative with how we do things, but at some point we also have to start thinking about the future and start planning for when this darn thing was going to go away and we could finally get together again, which I can't wait for the day. And so as we went through the year, we tried to start loosening up a little bit with finances, and you know, where we had a lot of, we tried to limit because we thought things would be temporary, but we started, you know, thinking about the future and how can we better engage people now, but also be ready for how things are going to go in the future. And I just wanted to talk, you know, that's kind of the overview of how the year went. But, you know, just speaking from a pure financial number, you know, 2020 had a really big impact on us, you know, financially, and, you know, also in all the other ways too. You know, we were on you know, the last 5 years, we were on a upward trajectory. And then, you know, 2019, you know, we lost our rector, and, you know, things kind of flattened out a little bit. But then 2020 really kind of went the other direction. And you can also kind of see that, you know, in 2020, that, you know, giving for whether it was pledge or for the capital campaign, we were really impacted by COVID, and then all the economic damage that it brought to everybody. And but again, talking about the blessing is that with the work and the collaboration of everybody, is that we were really able to manage the loss of revenue, and really and still be really creative. That, you know, in 2020 we had a budgeted deficit of $44,000, and most of that was going to be incurred with bringing on a new rector and moving expenses and things like that. And even with those, we still managed to improve, having a better deficit in 2020 than we did. And so I'm really, really grateful to everybody that, you know, you've heard some amazing stories today and doing things. And I wanted to touch on one story in particular about, we were going through, and not to bore you with the details, but we were auditing funds and doing things like that. And we found some money that we didn't realize that we had, that some of it went to other places. It had just been put in this fund by accident. And so we put that money back where it went. But we also just found some money that had been sitting there for years, and, you know, had been raised for this purpose or that purpose. And so we endeavored to try and reach out to those people to send it where it went. In some cases it went, some of it was just, you know, but a lot of people just say, hey, why don't you guys keep it and use it for your own ministry? And we all thought about it, and we decided to come up with a fund for helping people out, that, you know, just like there's been some scholarships for the preschool and things like that. So we set up this fund to help people just kind of in their everyday lives. It wasn't meant to like pay mortgage or rents or things like that, but just to help people with groceries, or, you know, maybe a one-time bill, or just, you know, maybe having a nice dinner with the family. And I'm happy to say that we excuse me, we distributed, you know, this program went into effect kind of later in 2020, but we distributed $1,500, and we still have about $5,000 left that we're going to be using through 2020. So the senior warden and Cameron are kind of the gatekeepers of that. So I just want to encourage you that if you know people that might need a little bit of help, like I said, this is not meant to help overcome huge financial hurdles, but just a little bit of help. But if you encourage you to reach out to them, and we can surprise some people, because most of the people, you know, a lot of people don't want to ask for help for whatever reason, but when they did receive it, it was such a blessing. And you know, it really just shows that we're out there looking out for each other, and we're doing what Jesus calls us to do. And I think that that's kind of the highlight for me, aside from hearing everybody else, is just hearing those stories about how, you know, $50 worth of groceries came at such an unexpected time for somebody, and it had such an impact. It's not a lot of money, but it just shows that we're caring and we're connected with each other. And so kind of moving on into 2021, this has been, you know, I've been involved with finance for St. Richard's, you know, since 2013, and have been treasurer and finance committee. And I've helped out on the diocesan level and the executive board with budgets. And I'll say that this has been Rob, the outgoing treasurer, and I were really having a hard time with this because we just didn't know what was coming. And, you know, we know that someday it's going to be better, but the question is when. And then also, you know, just kind of considering how everybody's been impacted by this, you know, either from getting sick or, you know, you've had financial difficulty, and just, you know, really thinking through all these things and how are we going to move forward. And so I wanted to kind of cover a little bit of where we are, like on giving, that, you know, you can kind of see that where the red circles are, that, you know, our pledging is quite understandably different from how it has been in different years. And, you know, I just want to encourage and that if for some reason that your stewardship card, your pledge card is just sitting in your, you know, your pile of bills waiting to be processed, and you've given some thought, and maybe you have a number to send that on to Ron Johnson, our bookkeeper. And, you know, that if you guys have been talking about it, you know, continue praying about it, and, you know, as you're able, do something. And then the other thing that I wanted to hint, that this has really been the biggest challenge for us through 2020, and is going to continue to be a challenge for us in 2021, is that, you know, on what we call operations or mission administrator side, is that we are in pretty good shape, but the concern that we're really watching is the debt that we paid on the parish hall that we built. If you remember, when we built it, we had a 5-year plan to pay off the debt, and we launched a second capital campaign to do that. And that's probably the biggest hurdle that we face, is that, you know, the giving in 2020 wasn't enough to cover the debt service. And so we had resources in reserve, but those were being consumed. And at some point in 2021, we're going to have to start looking at different things. But that's just one thing that we just wanted to bring to everybody's attention. And kind of going back to preparing the 2021 budget and not really knowing what's going to happen. So Rob and I, with the advice of the finance committee, we developed about actually 5 different budget scenarios, kind of 4 for the year. And then we also developed a budget for the first quarter. And, you know, the pessimistic looks like that 2020 will continue. Likely is kind of like assuming that things get better for us and we're able to start gathering, you know, mid-year. And the optimistic is that things happen much quicker than that. And the blended estimate is just a statistical blend of all those different ones that kind of gives us a more accurate reading of how they're going to do it. And you can see it's pretty close to the likely scenario, because in that formula, the likely scenario receives the most weight. So I think that we're going to be in good shape. You know, as we look at the amount of money we have and the amount of money we plan to raise. This is, you know, there's more details about this in the annual report, but, you know, 2021 will be a challenge, just like 2020 was, but we will be able to absorb and endure. And if, you know, even if the pandemic persists beyond 2021, which we all pray will not. So the good news is that we're not in great shape, but we still have resources available. And then finally, I just want to kind of touch on some highlights of things about 2021. You know, one thing that we did do is to kind of more proactively in the shorter scenarios, we developed a Q1 budget independent of the annual budget. It has a lot of the same numbers, but it allows us to be more flexible. And one thing that we are doing also is that, you know, I'm going to be meeting with the staff and the finance committee more regularly than what we have been, to actually look at what we're planning on doing in the near term and in the future, so that we can collaboratively allocate resources. And so while we may have set aside X dollars for this particular program and Y dollars, we're really going to be taking a look at a budget from the overall number perspective and seeing, you know, where we need to put dollars to continue to be able to connect now, but also be ready for planning for when we are able to get together. And then another good thing that is not really discussed in the annual report, because some of this kind of came about after I prepared the report, but we had applied for the second round of the payroll protection program. Actually, I just got the paperwork to sign on Friday. So we were approved for $59,000. We also have some diocesan assistance programs that are basically, they're giving us assessments, giving us funds to help us with our assessment, which just makes more resources available for us locally. And then there's some other ones. And then the diocese has always had on a regular basis lots of grants available and for mission and ministry. You know, a good example is a couple of years ago, we got $50,000 that we used to do Theology Live for a couple of years. I think that had a lot of impact. So we're going to be actively pursuing those. But as of right now, we are either approved for or will be in the process of getting about $90,000 worth of financial assistance, which is huge for us. And so I'm really, really grateful for that. And then, you know, I was talking about how St. Richard's would be able to absorb, you know, if through 2021, if it continues, even beyond like the resources that we have and we will receive in 2021. Over the years, we have managed to, we've set aside money and we have $124,000 in a rainy day fund. And then many years ago, and we just renew it annually, we've never touched it. But in the case of an extreme emergency, we have a $100,000 line of credit with our bank. I think that if we actually have to type into that we're going to have bigger problems than even finance. So, but it's always just there. So I want everyone just to know that, to be comfortable that that St. Richard's is doing, we're doing as well as we can be in this, just like everybody else. A couple other things that we're going to be doing just to kind of help better manage our cash flow. Like we are going to be working with our lenders on the parish hall. We still currently owe, I guess, about 1.3 million on the First Texas Bank loan, and then about 300,000 that we make an annual payment on to the Crump Foundations, which provides very low interest loans to churches for infrastructure and construction. Actually, that loan has a 2%. I wish I could get that for my mortgage, even in the. So we're going to be really working hard and actively to kind of manage the current situation, but also just getting past the fatigue of Corona and looking for the future and being ready for that, for the day that we all get to be able to get together. I just want to say thank you to Robin over, you know, this, you know, during 2019, she was a great leader for us. And then in 2020, you know, during the pandemic, that, you know, she provided even more leadership. And I want to say thank you to Kelly and Spencer and Liza, that you guys, I know it was really hard sometimes as we had to make decisions about things, but you guys got really creative with, and it was just amazing watching you guys work. And everyone else that has, you know, continued to find ways to connect with people. And I think that's kind of the big blessing coming out of this, is that we've learned that, you know, we do have program and mission and ministry and things, but I think that we've learned how to reconnect with each other on a more personal level, and learned how to talk to each other more, and gotten to sit down and have cups of coffee and things like that. And I think that that's the blessing out of 2020 for me, is that I've just spent more time slowed down and actually listened to people more than just trying to, you know, find out what do you need. And so with that, I am done, and I'll turn it back over to Cameron.
All right, David, thank you so much. And a huge thank you to Rob McFarland as well, for all of the hard work that both of you put in on putting together this budget. You know, it's not easy. It hasn't been easy to plan for anything, but especially, you know, finances are a huge part of that. Finances help undergird all of the ministry and work that we do, and they are very vital to us. And y'all had a big task before you in putting together the budget for this year, and y'all both worked very hard to come up with something that was realistic and adaptable and flexible enough to meet the kind of changing context that we'll likely see in 2021. And so hats off to both of you. I'm really grateful for your hard work there. So, all right, so up next, we have the Junior Warden's Report. Ted, hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Father Cameron. Just wanted to let you know some of the activities we completed during the past year, despite the pandemic and all that, or in the case of our internet upgrade, at least because of the pandemic. When we started live streaming services and all that, it became abundantly clear that our internet was not up to the task. And so Liza and I did a lot of research, and we had to switch providers to Spectrum, but we were able to upgrade our internet speed from 25 megabits per second to 600 megabits per second. And Spectrum did have to bring in a new cable line from our property line to the north, and but they did that at their own expense. And As part of the package, we combined our phones and our internet into one package, and we're now spending about 50% less than we were last year for internet and phone combined. So, and that'll carry on for as long as we have the internet. So hopefully that'll help out. But just because we closed our buildings, we didn't stop working on them. We did reduce a lot of our expenses by cutting back on simple things like garbage collection and housekeeping services, which we didn't need a whole lot of because we were closed. Garbage we went to collecting as needed rather than weekly, and that saved us a tremendous amount of money. Housekeeping we've cut back all the way to no service for a few months, and now we're at once a week. So I think we're continuing on with once a week for the foreseeable future. So we've significantly cut back on that. Our air conditioning units, we cut those back to unoccupied mode, which kept them working at a minimal level just to maintain some comfort for short time uses and maintain humidity. But we were able to keep those running most of the year. We did have one failure in a air conditioning unit, and as a result, it had to be replaced. That was unexpected, but some of our units are getting rather old, so it happens. But we did manage to reduce our utility cost for the year by 14% over 2019, just because of all the turning off of lights and appliances and scaling back our air conditioning and all that. So. But one problem we noted almost immediately with the church closed, no one was there on a regular basis. So, problems weren't being checked and reported in a timely fashion. So Liza and Matthew and I all managed to, when we were there, we checked the place out and kept things under control. Some plumbing leaks were fixed. And of course, the air conditioning problems I mentioned earlier were taken care of. But one thing that didn't really stop was our gardening and lawn mowing activities. Those ministries continued pretty much unabated during the pandemic. And we just did it with fewer people because fewer people were volunteering, fewer people were coming out to help out. But we managed to make some significant accomplishments during the year. We did upgrade our irrigation system to now we're watering the beds that are around our new signs at the front of the church. And we have completed the documentation of the Memorial Garden marker location and interments. That's been underway for a while, but we were able to finish that this past year. And we created some temporary downspout extensions to eliminate some water ponding in our gardens, which was basically drowning all our plants. That's not a good thing. Particularly on the west side of the parish hall, that was the worst part of the whole thing. But as I said, we're getting as many volunteers to come out and help out. So I just want to put in another plug for, we're always open to having more volunteers. There's always something to do. Contact anybody on the gardening team or even myself, and we will get you set up. We have tools, or you can bring your own, either way. And that, I'd just like to thank Liza and Matthew for their dedication to checking the buildings, to Jeff and Nancy for their unrelenting dedication to the gardens and the grounds. And thank you to Tim and Kurt for their maintenance of the lawns. And with that, I will wrap it up. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ted. And a big thank you to you, truly, for all of the work that you've put in this year, keeping things, running and in good shape for us as we, get ready to reopen. I mean, it's important that our building not be absolutely in disrepair when we come back to it, right? And you've been such a huge part of that. I honestly, I can really think of maybe just Shauna is the only one of us who's been up at the church more than you. I feel like every time I would come to get mail out of my mailbox or something, Ted would be there. Ted would be around working on something, and I'm just very grateful for all that he's done to keep us going. So. All right, so now we're up with the senior warden report and then my report, and we will look at some questions and wrap for the day. So Robin, over to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, and one other thing to mention is that Ted actually did that junior warden job for 2 years, and he was amazingly awesome. I can't thank him enough for all the work that he did. So wonderful to be here this morning and to be able to share some notes with you all. Just kind of FYI, as I was preparing my annual report, my first thought was, you know what, we haven't been together, we haven't been on the campus, gosh, what really have we done this year? We started out, with all these great ideas, and then we got cut short with COVID. And, my thoughts were, what am I going to write? But clearly, this has been an amazing and busy year. We have accomplished so much. You've heard all of these various reports so far. And as you can see, we haven't stopped. The Holy Spirit has been, working amongst us in so many different ways. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been a part of this year and kept things going. A year ago, we were doing the annual meeting, and we had all these people in the parish hall, and it was, we had all this excitement over 2020 and, where it was going to take us. And then lo and behold, about a month later, we got blindsided by COVID, and we just, many of us we just didn't know, what direction. This was all so new for us. And so here we are a year later, and looking back, and we've learned so much, and we've learned to come together in new ways. And it's just all awesome. A lot of thank yous have been already expressed, but I just want to mention a couple of things specifically from my end. The vestry, an amazing vestry, I have to tell you. If you're ever looking for a way to serve, get involved with vestry. They're an amazing group. It's not hard. It's such rewarding work. The vestry met monthly, as they usually do at the beginning of the year, but as COVID started ramping up, we literally met for about an hour once a week. We had some time off, but it was just our checkpoint and making sure that we knew what was going on campus, what needed to be done, how we could improve our communication. We wanted to keep people together. So that was a huge effort on the part of our vestry, and there's just no words for all the work that they did. And of course, for Mother Kelly, she did so much. And not only with the morning prayer, but staying connected with families. And she just, and kind of being the glue with the coming and going of our interims. And so she helped out so much on that level. And the finance committee, as David has already mentioned, they were working constantly, watching what was going on, and giving advice to vestry. And it's not just David and Rob, but there's about 4 or 5 other people on the finance committee that's not being named today that they showed up. They were always there and helping out. And well, I'm sure he's going to get mentioned here sooner or later, but by Cameron probably. But Duke DeTeal, countless hours helping us with all the video, all the taping, and actually kind of backing up Ted too, and the internet transition and all that. But Duke was there every single week, and he was editing, and he's still doing it. So he's in the background today. Spencer and Scott McNulty, ensuring that our youth and our choirs stayed connected. It was not an easy task, but they did it. And then Liza, our operations director. She wasn't on campus a lot because, well, we weren't, but she would check in, and she was always in the background, pulling things together, keeping people informed. And it was just, I can't thank her enough for all the work that she did in supporting me and Vestry, and again, the interims and staff in general. And then Warren and all those worker bees and the outcome of our pumpkin patch. And yes, he is handing over the metaphorical pumpkin to me, but I want to assure you that he and I are going to need a lot of help. This year, I'm going to be reaching out to some of you and asking you if you will help take on parts of the co-director, if you will, work for Pumpkin Patch, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So if you're interested, just reach out to me yourself. Otherwise, be prepared, because I'm probably going to be talking to quite a few of you. And then the search committee. We haven't really mentioned them. There were 13 amazing, awesome people who, around the March timeframe, started interviewing candidates. Much of their work kind of it stalled because of COVID. And, but they, in the background, they kept communicating and working towards securing a rector. In the end, they were 100% in agreement on recommending Cameron to the vestry. And once that happened, vestry reviewed Cameron and his background. And again, we were 100% in agreement to call Cameron. And so that is probably, I think you'll all agree, the biggest thing that happened this year. We are so incredibly blessed by him and Carly and all the work that he's done for us thus far since he started with us on September 1st. And I just want to mention, they probably aren't going to watch this or maybe participate, but Father Mike Wyckoff, he was with us for, I want to say 18 months, and until he decided he needed to go back into retirement, I guess right after Easter of last year. And then Father Long, who joined us, they were just amazing in shepherding us through this time without a rector. So much thanks to them. Other than that, I think, much of what I wanted to say, a lot of it was filled in by, some of the other reports. The Nancy and Jeff crash, Ted mentioned all the work that was being done on the property while basically the campus was closed. Nancy and Jeff just worked so hard in making things beautiful. And I know that part of that was making sure that when our new rector came and all of us go back to church, that things will look like they did before we left. The Daughters of the King and the Brothers of St. Andrew, they were working in the background praying for all of us and trying to keep things centered. They didn't stop. They kept working towards their ministry goals. And while it was difficult this is an outreach thing, while it was difficult to really serve at the Round Rock Serving Center in person, I want to say that we did manage to paint some restrooms. We painted all of their restrooms, Roberta Miller, her husband, and Steve and I can't remember who else, but we did that. And not only, Warren mentioned the $18,000 that we were able to support the Serving Center's budget. Actually, it was more than that, because we were able to give them some additional money through our special needs fund. And so we were closer, probably over $20,000 that we were able to give to the Serving Center over the year. And it was also mentioned that, I think David mentioned the special needs fund, the ability to help all those families. Spencer and Mother Kelly kind of kept their ear to the ground as to who might need some help. And so just thank you for that, and giving away $1,000 in gift cards to people that were in need. All the people that helped with the noonday prayer, especially in the early days of COVID, Ron Perry, Mother Kelly, and I know that the Perrys have continued to do virtual Bible study, and I think there's some others out there that are doing the same. We've kept this going. It's amazing and it's awesome. And those that have served and given to Love, Serve, Feed, St. Richard's has been a big part of the donations there, and that's the organization, the ministry that provides lunches on Saturdays at Hernandez Middle School. It's one of our ministries. And then finally, I want to thank Kathy Stites and Mary McCaskey for all those cookies that they baked and all the outreach that came out of our Christmas cookie effort there, and all the people that helped bake those cookies. And also to Kathy and her team for the brunch events that she managed to pull off, all packaged during those weeks that we were actually able to have outdoor services. And so all of that being said, we've had an amazing year. We are so blessed. God is working, amongst us all and leading us to this awesome, new, and wonderful place of 2021. And I just want to thank everybody for everything that they've done. And while I got the metaphorical pumpkin passed off to me by my buddy Warren, I am going to metaphorically pass along the keys to the church, if you will, to our new senior warden, Casey Wade. And Casey, he was awesome in helping in so many ways during 2020. And I know that he's going to provide excellent leadership to our 2021 vestry and work very closely with Cameron and everyone, our staff. And so just thank you so much, everybody, for all of the help that you provided me over the last few years, and all of the prayers and everything. I've been so blessed by all of you and by being able to serve. And again, I just encourage you all to make time for this amazing church and become part of everything that's going on here, because you'll never regret it. It's just an awesome place. Thanks.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for for all that you bring in your ministry here in our midst. I've been so grateful for your help as I've come on board, and just your kindness, and just truly everything you do for this place is remarkable. Being senior warden is a big responsibility in the best of times, but being a senior warden who has to do that in the midst of a rector search is an even harder task. And then being the senior warden who oversees a rector search and the parish during a global pandemic, we just hope no one has a tenure quite like yours. Okay, we'll hope that, but we did want to share our special appreciation for you and your ministry here. So before I give my report, we do have a couple of surprise gifts for you, just to say thank you. The first of which is this framed portrait of the butterfly cross, which was both taken and framed and matted actually by our own Tom Cooper, who and he put the plaque on the back there. And so I will get this to you very soon to say thank you. And also because, again, you've had a very unconventional tenure, and I know it's been very stressful. We wanted to do something for you for spiritual restoration and rejuvenation. And so we're also going to give you some time away at camp as well, to take some time in sort of spiritual retreat and prayer. So we'll talk about that later and work out the details, but we're just really, really grateful for your ministry among us, and what you're going to do in this next season. I'm sure the pumpkin patch has never seen a leader quite like you. So anyway, we know it's in good hands, but thank you so much. Okay, so we are nearing the end here. I know this is a long Zoom, it's a long stream for people, but we did want to get through all of this. And again, this has been a challenging and interesting year. And so wanted to leave time for all of these updates because it's been harder to stay connected. And this is one of the few times I think where we're all kind of together learning about all the different things that have been going on through this season. Because as many people have said today, even though we haven't been meeting in person as regularly, that does not mean that the work of the church has stopped. We've continued to be the church this whole time, and we will continue to be the church through this next year. If most of what we have heard so far has been about the story of 2020, part of what I want to talk about is how together we will write this next chapter in 2021 and start to look ahead, mostly because I wasn't here for a lot of 2020. And so there's not much I can really tell you about 2020 coming in at the last part of the year, but I have been trying to meet people, to talk to people, to introduce myself, to learn about this place, to do work building relationships with staff and vestry. And I'm really excited to get started on this year, which will, I think, feel very different than 2020. I'm very hopeful for this year. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about what we're looking at in this next chapter. So a few weeks ago, I preached a sermon in which I posed a question. Are we in the belly of the fish, or are we the ones doing the fishing? And I posed this question kind of contrasting the story of Jonah, right, who is called by God to go to Nineveh, to go prophesy to Nineveh. He doesn't want to go, and he ends up spending some time in the belly of a fish, having to think about his life choices, okay? In the end, he ends up going to Nineveh. He ends up being faithful to God's call, but it's not without a lot of reluctance. And some detours along the way. And I contrasted Jonah with the story that we heard that Sunday from the Gospel of Mark of Jesus calling his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. And he tells them that, you may be fishermen, but I'm going to make you fish for people. So come follow me. And they drop their nets and follow Jesus. Okay. And there's these two contrasting responses to God's call. You have Jonah, who was like, nope, don't want to go to Nineveh. And you have the disciples who dropped their nets immediately to follow Jesus. Now, in both cases, right, the disciples didn't get it right all the time. I mean, very famously, Peter sort of denies Jesus 3 times at this like moment of real importance. So it's not like the disciples were perfect by any stretch. But their response to God's call in their life looked a little bit different than Jonah's. And I think this year for us is going to be really decisive in so many ways. It's going to be a year of discernment and prayer and opening our hearts and our ears and our eyes to seeing, to hearing, to listening for where God is calling us on the other side of this pandemic. And so that's why I posed this question. Are we going to be the ones in the belly of the fish? Or are we going to be proactive and faithfully listening to where God's calling us and be the ones doing the fishing? I think that's kind of the choice that lies before us this year. Now, we do have a number of challenges that we're going to need to overcome in this next year. And you've heard about some of those today. I think our financial sustainability is a big, big piece of that, figuring out what to do about the mortgage on the building. I knew in the interview process that this was going to be kind of a first priority coming in, figuring out what to do about that. I mean, capital campaigns already are difficult from a rector's transition point of view, right? Because when you are in between rectors, momentum shifts and things like that make that challenging. But of course, we've also been in a pandemic, so I knew that dynamic was going to be a factor there as well. So coming in, I knew that was going to be a challenge, and certainly it will be. That's going to need to be a priority for us. I've tried to learn as much about the campaigns, previous campaigns. I've tried to learn as much as I can about how the building process went, who was involved, all of that sort of stuff. I've even looked through a big binder full of a lot of information that one of the consultants left behind. So I've tried to learn as much as I can to figure out, okay, how did we get where we are and where are we now and how can we move forward? And that's certainly going to be a big priority for us this next year because, as David said, I mean, operating wise, this will be a lean year, but very doable and we can kind of make it through to the other side. But the mortgage is still going to need to be paid, and that's going to be challenging for us as our operating budget can't accommodate that mission and the mortgage. Okay. And so there will be some practical challenges that we have. But I want us to focus on the fact and repeat like a mantra. This is something I've been saying to myself, is that even though the mortgage is important, we're going to have to figure that out, and we're going to talk more about that throughout this year. The mortgage isn't our mission. The mortgage isn't our mission. And I know that you've heard that today as well, even in David's finance presentation, right, where he talked a lot about it. But even there, we're not a mortgage, we're a church, right? We're the people of God. People don't join a mortgage, people join a church. They join a movement. They join a movement around the gospel and around Jesus Christ. And so that's not to say that some of these practical things that we're going to have to tackle this year aren't really vital and important to our long-term sustainability and health, but it's that at its core, that's not what we're here to do, right? That's not why we exist. It's not our purpose, though it is really, really crucial. And so I want us to repeat that this year, that the mortgage is not our mission, but we're gonna have to figure out how to pay it in order to do our mission and be the kind of church that we have been and want to continue to be in our community. And we've got a number of ways that we're trying to address this. We've been talking to the diocese about ways that they can support us. And obviously there's, as David talked about, some grant money and things there that will help supplement some ministry costs, but we'll need to get through that. So if the mortgage isn't our mission, though, what is our mission, and what are we listening for in this next year? Okay, so this is kind of where I want to turn and start talking about what's gonna be going on. So one of the things that I did when I got here is I didn't just want to learn about, about the financial situation of the parish, but I also wanted to learn as much about the character of the parish. And that was obviously a little challenging to do because we weren't all gathered. So it was hard to get a read and, again, to meet people, to talk to people, that kind of thing. But I came across the results of a study that were done in preparation for the rector search, and it collected a lot of data on the congregation, and y'all talked a lot about what your values were, what you wanted to be about as a community of faith. And that was really helpful for me because I've seen those same values reflected in people's stories as I've gotten to know folks here around the church and gotten to work and talk with staff and hear about how these values have sort of already been at work and shaping our life together. And so I've kind of distilled these values into what I've started referring to as our 5 core values that I think are going to shape the questions that we ask over the course of this next year about what we want to do and what kind of parish we want to be on the other side of the pandemic. So here are those 5 things that I want y'all to be praying through and thinking through as well in the year ahead. Those 5 things are that we want to be a church that welcomes newcomers. This was clear to me in the interview process. Y'all wanted to be a church that was proactive about reaching out to your community and all of the growth that has been going on in our area. I mean, this has been an area of explosive growth in the past couple of decades. And I got the impression that y'all are a church that doesn't want to just put its head in the sand where that's concerned, but actually wants to be reaching out to all of these new neighbors that we have. And so one of the questions we'll be asking this year is, how do we respond to that growth? And maybe respond to it in some new ways with some lessons that we've learned during COVID. How do we connect with people in different ways where our people may be? How do we share the love of Jesus with everyone and welcome them no matter where they are in their spiritual journey? How do we really be a place for all people on that walk of faith? We're going to be talking about that as a vestry. So that's the first thing. How do we welcome newcomers? The second thing that we're about is making disciples. This was clear to me that y'all are a church that really takes your faith seriously. You're a church that wants to go deeper than just what you have on Sunday mornings. You're a church that wants to be in connection in small group communities and exploring scripture. You're a church that really likes doing Bible studies. And I know that may sound kind of a weird thing to say, because shouldn't all churches like doing that? But actually some don't really. Some don't do Bible studies outside of just your normal Sunday morning. But y'all are active and engaged in that way. And we want to find out how we can continue to do that better and do a better job of not only welcoming people, but how do we then equip them in their faith and in their faith journey? So that's the second thing, is to make disciples. The third thing that we want to do this year is we want to figure out how to continue to better develop leaders. We have so many amazing ministries. Y'all have heard about a lot of them this morning and what's going on with all of them, but you've also heard that there is a real need for leaders, for folks to step up and to hear that call and that tug on their heart to serve their church in different ways. And so we want to make sure that we're helping to equip you and develop you to do that work. As good and as amazing as our staff is, and our staff is just really incredible. I've been so blessed by each of them, and I'm so excited because that is one of the anxieties you have as a new priest is you're like, is my staff going to like me? Will we work well together? I don't know. Now, they may not like me. I don't know, but they say nice things. But I certainly love them, and I've been so grateful for their presence. But no matter how good a church's staff is, it's really all of you, the people in the pews. Y'all are the ones who do the ministry. I mean, that's just really true. It's our job as a staff to help equip you to do it and to give you what you need and to be there for you and support you. But the work of the church is really done by the folks in the pews. It's done by the people, not by the professional Christians. And so we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to develop leaders to lead our ministries and to be leaders in the community. So that's the third thing. So welcome newcomers, make disciples, develop leaders. And the fourth thing that came out of that survey, and then I've heard a lot since, is we want to be a community that's all about healing. We want to be a community that binds up the brokenhearted, where you can come if you are suffering, if you are going through a hard time. I mean, I've heard so many powerful stories from parishioners of the ways that St. Richard's has been there for them in an immensely difficult season of life. And that's what we want to continue to be about. And we want to do that work purposefully. Because here's the thing, after coming out of a year or so, like we have come out of, we're all going to be broken, right? We all are hurting. We all are feeling some degree of pain and mourning over all of this that's been going on. And so I think that's going to be really crucial for us in this year ahead of how we continue to be a community that binds up the brokenhearted, and a community that is one of healing and wholeness and restoration. So that's the fourth thing. And then the fifth thing that we want to be about this year is serving others. We've already heard this morning about a number of ways we've continued to do that, even in the challenging circumstances of the pandemic. But we want to be more intentional about that in the year ahead. One of the things that I'm hoping that we can get off the ground is an actual outreach committee of people who are passionate about serving in the community and want to do that work, and who can help be a conduit for us in facilitating that work, rounding up volunteers, connecting them to opportunities, that kind of thing. And so we want to be more intentional about how we serve others. So those are the 5 things that we want to be about. We want to be about welcoming newcomers into our midst, making disciples, developing leaders, binding up the brokenhearted, and serving others. These are the values I think that we share as a community, and that will help shape our response to this year. And what lies ahead. And we'll certainly be shaping the vestry's plans around some of these things. So the vestry retreat is next weekend. I mentioned that in the announcements on Sunday a few times, and we appreciate your prayers for that. But what we'll be doing as a vestry is starting to flesh out some of these things and figure out how we will do them in practice. And we'll certainly keep you updated on those things as they come along. But that's the basic framework and where our heart is and where we're headed. And it is going to take all of us, every single one of us this year, coming together to support one another, to support the church, to listen and discern and pray together. I mean, this is what they call in college football, this is our rebuilding year, right? This is where we're bringing in some new coordinators. We're coming up with some new schemes because the playing field's going to be a little bit different on the other side of the pandemic than it was before. And that's going to require some adaptation and all of that. So anyway, I'm really excited about that work and being in the midst of it with all of you. So to talk about this, right, to talk about what this looks like, I know you've all been waiting for when are we going to get back together, right? When are we going to start getting back in person, and what is that going to look like? So I want to take just a minute and talk about that. I know we've been going for a long time, but I want to say just a little bit about our plan moving forward before we wrap up today. And get to answering some questions if they're out there. And like I said, we can do a follow-up to make sure those are answered since we've gone so far over. So here we go. Okay, so what are we doing? So we've been waiting and looking for cases to decline for a while. Since November, cases had been skyrocketing. They've been going up and up and up, and we still hadn't seen any reversal of that trend. Now, thankfully, over the past about week and a half or so, things have been going in the right direction here in our county and in surrounding counties. And that's really good. What I was hoping to see was about 2 weeks of sustained decreases in cases to kind of get us back in a little bit closer to where we were in September, October, before we looked at regathering again, to be able to do this and do it safely. Now, because things are headed in the right direction, I think that we'll be able to do some limited in-person things here very, very soon, but we're going to have to be really, really careful, because at the same time that cases are declining and vaccines are being distributed, both really good things, we've also had reports this week that the highly infectious strain of the virus from the UK is in our area and things like that. So hopefully that won't cause trouble, but we do have to be mindful of it. We're going to be sending out a message about Ash Wednesday this week. And in that message, you will see that there are a couple of opportunities for in-person imposition of ashes for Ash Wednesday. Okay, it's going to be done a little bit differently than in prior years. We won't be smudging them on your forehead, but we'll be sprinkling them on your forehead, for instance, and I'll be wearing a mask as well as a face shield to do that, so that I'm not breathing all on you. But we will have some in-person opportunities for that. Now, my hope is that following Sunday, Lent 1, we can get back together for some in-person Eucharistic services. But again, we're going to have to be immensely careful. We're going to have to abide by some pretty stringent protocols so that we can do so and do so safely. Now, instead of being in the parish hall or whatever as we've done in the fall, my philosophy this time around, having done some more research and learned some more things from some other churches who have been meeting in person for a while, is that instead of being in the parish hall or whatever, what we're going to do is we will go back in the nave. I know that y'all have really wanted to do that. I've been wanting to do that. I still haven't been able to be in there with you. And so we will go in the nave. But we will limit service capacity significantly. So the idea will be we will have very few people per service, but we will offer more services per Sunday, okay? And we'll send out a whole separate message that's about nothing but that, with all of the details. I don't want to bore you with that today, but just know we'll just have to be really careful and monitor the situation, and we'll have to be really diligent about signing up for services so that in the event that we do need to contact you, we can. But the good news is we will be not only regathering together for worship, but doing so back in the nave, which I know means so much to so many. And so, so I'm really excited about that. And again, my goal is that we will be doing that on Lent 1. Okay, so here in just a couple of weeks. So that is the plan. Spencer just sent me a message, which I think is a good one for those of you listening who don't know what nave means, because Episcopalians are absolutely full of bizarre words. That is the sanctuary. That's the normal part of the church where the pews are. So that's our hope and kind of what we'll do. Now, looking longer term, we're obviously going to have to play the spring by ear a little bit, because vaccines are still getting distributed. We're in the early stages of that, and case counts, even though they're headed in the right direction, could go the other way. But we are really thinking that by summer, things are going to be really stable, and certainly by fall, at least according to all of the stuff that is being looked at, by fall we'll be not 100% back to normal, but really, really close. And so we'll be able to, that'll look very, very different, okay, than the spring. So, as we've been doing, we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to be filled with grace on some of these things and work together, but we will be able to regather and to do so soon. And then as we make our way through the year, things will progressively get better, right? Things will progressively get back into something that looked a little bit more like normalcy. And again, things won't be exactly as they were before. I mean, we've all been changed by this, right? Things are going to be a little bit different. We've learned, we've grown, and that's okay. But I do think that this will be a decisive year for us. that will help shape the kind of church and community that we're going to be, not just in 2022, but also in the decades to come. I think this is one of those kind of watershed historical moments in the life of our church, as it is for so many churches. And so anyway, and I'm delighted and excited to be able to walk it with you and to help write this next chapter of our story together. So with that, we have hit exactly 10:30, which is in my mind what I thought would be our absolute max time. Again, I know that doesn't address every single question y'all are going to have about what it looks like to reopen, and we're going to send information about that specifically with policies and how it's going to work and what it's going to look like. But for now, know that it's coming, and I just want y'all to look forward to that. I'm looking forward to that, and we're just going to do it as safely as we possibly can and take care of our neighbor. So with that, I am going to look very quickly and see, I don't know, if somebody could message me who's been maybe looking if we've got any questions to look at really quickly. And what I'll just say right now is we've kind of concluded official business for the day. I want to say thank you so much to all of our all of our speakers, all of our presenters today. Again, a special thank you to Duke for helping make this possible and live streaming. Thank you to all of you who've tuned in. I am going to look at these questions, but with the exception of maybe David and Robin, let me see here. Some of y'all, Liza just says no questions. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to do another sweep after this. And if there are any questions, like I said, I will be happy to do a follow-up and answer any of those that you have, because we want to be able to be in communication with you all. But again, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Truly, this is what a year, but we're going to get through. And like I said, I'm really actually very excited to see what the Holy Spirit not only has been doing in our midst, but will continue to do as we step into this next chapter. In a lot of ways, I think what's going to be fun for us as a church is, even though we've come so far, I've been reading a lot of the parish history. This is the last thing I'll say, I promise, and then I'll pray and we'll go. But I've been reading a lot about the parish, again, trying to learn all that I can during this time. And I think what's kind of fun for us is that in this next season, we're going to kind of go back, I think, to thinking a little bit like we did back when it was like meeting in a warehouse on Mays Street. You know what I mean? And thinking a little bit like that scrappy church plant planted by Malcolm Riker back in the mid-'70s. I've been having a lot of backyard sits with Father Sid and hearing the stories of him taking the parish from a mission to a parish. And it's really energized me, because I think even though we've got, more people and resources now than we had then, I think part of the key to our future is to going back and thinking like that mission and being scrappy and entrepreneurial. And yes, Warren, even doing a little bit of evangelism out there in the community. And I think it's going to be fun. That's going to be fun work. So anyway, again, thank y'all so much. And let us pray very briefly, and we'll move on with our morning. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, I thank you so much again for all of these people on this call, for all who've tuned in, for everyone that will tune in to watch this annual meeting. I thank you for that your hand is upon us, that you continue to lead us and guide us even in the midst of uncertainty. I thank you that you give us hope, and that you empower us with your Holy Spirit to do this mission and this work in the world. I thank you so much for the privilege that it is to be entrusted with this. We pray for all of those right now who are grieving, mourning, who are sick, who have any need of you, that you would be with them, that you would heal them, and that your Holy Spirit and your peace and presence would be with them. Lord, we pray that you would keep us mindful and open to where you would lead us in the year ahead. For it's in your name that we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you all so much. It was a